I ask you to take your seats so we can get going here. The dinner in the back will remain throughout the meeting.
I work in the students and you get a hotel and you don't have a dedicated space. Yeah.
Thank you, Connor, for getting us all set up.
Thank you.
And let's get settled here.
All right. So before we get going, I just wanted to do a quick tech check for everybody present here. We've got these gooseneck mics for you. You don't need to, they're all live now. You won't need to press them on or off to turn them on. They'll just be on throughout the meeting. So with that, I'll go ahead and get our recording started.
Recording in progress.
Good evening.
Oh, press it one more time.
Yes. Good evening. Welcome to our third meeting in person. Welcome, everyone. Connor, would you like to, let's call the meeting to order. And Connor, can you lead us through roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jones-Dixon. Okay, Commissioner Carmen Rubio.
Here.
Let's see. Mayor Randy Lauer is not here yet. Continuing on. Director Terry Pre-Grigsby is not joined, I don't think, on Zoom yet. Omar Katub.
Here.
Commissioner Mark Scholl.
Here.
Mayor Joe Buck.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Councilor Brett Sherman
Here.
is here. Commissioner Sherry French.
Here.
Ed Gronke.
Here.
Commissioner Pam Treese.
Here.
Councilor Anthony Martin.
Here.
Councilor Nadia Hassan.
Here.
Vice President Gordon Hovey's.
Present.
Mayor Tim Rosner.
Here.
Luis Nava, I don't think has joined us yet. Okay. Thomas Kim.
I'm here.
Thank you. Director Kirsten Green.
Here.
Councilor Glenn Young. Don't think has joined us yet. Councilor Kim Harless. I also don't see yet. Alex Howard. is going to be late. Councillor Garrett Rosenthal.
Present.
Councillor Duncan Wong.
Present.
Councillor Mary Nolan.
Present. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And I think we've got Commissioner Sharon Mirren has joined us now. I've just promoted up the commissioner. And finally, Chair Vince Jones-Dixon.
Here, thank you. Thank you, Connor. We'll start with, and do we have quorum?
I am here, sorry. Commissioner Myron, belatedly, thank you, yay.
Thank you, Commissioner Myron. And
We do have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. We'll start with public communications. Welcome, everyone. We have a full house, and thank you, Connor and Jamisha, for getting us hooked up with dinner this evening. As a reminder, public comment may be submitted in writing and will also be heard by electronic communication. Written comments should be submitted electronically by emailing legislative coordinator at oregonmetro.gov. Written comments received by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, October 24th, has been provided to the committee in advance. If you have not already signed up to testify, you can sign up by virtually raising your hand now, and those calling in by phone can raise their hands by dialing *9. Those using Zoom, the Zoom function, or the Zoom app on their cell phone or computer can raise their hand by selecting the raise hand function along the bottom of the control bar. Connor, is there anyone here to testify?
Yes, Chair, we have had a couple of folks sign up in advance to testify. So first up, we have Joe Courtright. So Joe, I'll go ahead and promote you up to a panelist. All right, Joe, you should be able to unmute yourself now and turn on your camera. You'll have 3 minutes to testify, and your time will begin when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, and for the record, Joe Courtright. I am Director and Economist with City Observatory, and I want to speak to the Regional Transportation Plan, in particular the climate analysis in the Regional Transportation Plan. And I have submitted written comments earlier on the RTP, and I'm deeply concerned that there are serious flaws in the climate analysis in the RTP. The RTP fails to accurately present or accurately describe the trends in greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases for transportation in the Portland metropolitan area are not decreasing as your staff and as your RTP claims. In fact, they are increasing. Independent inventories of greenhouse gases by the state, by the federal government, by Multnomah County all show transportation greenhouse gases are increasing. We're not simply failing to make progress, we are going in the wrong direction. That means our current climate strategies are not sufficient. I want to note that your staff has, in their comments, said that they agree with that observation, which is great. But unfortunately, they're proposing no changes whatsoever in RTP policies or in the investment strategy to account for the fact that we're failing to meet our climate objectives. And in particular, that runs contrary to Metro's adopted climate smart strategy and the policies of cities like the city of Portland. In the climate smart strategy, Metro committed to accurately monitoring progress, and if you weren't making sufficient progress, then taking additional steps. And the fact that your staff is not proposing to take any additional steps to modify either policies or expenditure patterns to respond to the fact that you're not meeting your climate objectives means that you're not following through on that commitment. Instead, what we have is a hollow and technical commitment to update those inventories, which is simply not sufficient. I also want to point out that there's a clear double standard when it comes to the application of pricing. Your climate analysis makes heroic assumptions that the state imposes a carbon tax, imposes a vehicle user tax or a VMT tax, as well as congestion pricing and tolling in the Portland metropolitan area at very high levels. And that is assumed for the purposes of asserting that the RTP meets our climate objectives. Those same assumptions are not figured into the analysis of the need for projects. And in fact, we know, for example, with the Rose Quarter project, that ODOT's own traffic analysis shows that if we implement tolling in the Portland metropolitan area, there is no need to expand capacity. So what I want to stress is the climate portion of the RTP is out of step with policy.
We're going to have to. I'm sorry, we're at time. Thank you. We have received your public comment. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. There we do have another person in the audience with their hand up. So I will promote Sarah Iannarone now. I'll also note for the record that Councillor Glenn Young and Luis Nava have both joined us on Zoom. And apologies for those testifying. Our usual Zoom timer is not working, but we will have a beep going and I will let you know when you're at your 3 minutes. All right, so Sarah, you should be able to unmute now. You'll have 3 minutes and your time will begin when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking my testimony today. My name is Sarah Iannarone. I'm a member of TPAC and also the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee. My organization, the Street Trust, engaged community members in 5 focus groups across 16 zip codes and 3 counties, represented by 94% non-white participants for this RTP. And so I'm here to share some considerations across these divergent perspectives in advance of your discussion and decisions here today. There are 4 aspects I want to highlight: investment priorities, mobility, safety, and public oversight. First of all, the pricing measures are critical, but only if you implement them in ways that ensure trust in local government, including revenue sharing. Proceeds must be dedicated to funding for mitigating climate change and achieving equity. Public transit and active transportation.
Director Iannarone, Director Sarah, could you hold for just a moment? We're having technical difficulties here, so we have to turn up your volume just a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Usually
you.
people are happy to mute me.
Sorry, I can barely hear.
Okay, the Zoom volume should be louder now.
Okay.
Testing,
Can we reset
how do we sound?
the time?
It sounds the same.
It sounds the same. Could you just read a few of the sentences? We want to make sure the sound is good here in the
Good
room.
afternoon. My name is Sarah Iannarone.
Or maybe get closer to the mic.
Good afternoon. My
that
name is
sounds
Sarah
perfect.
Iannarone.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, I'll hold it here. Great. I think that solved all of our problems. So, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Iannarone. I'm a member of TPAC and RTAC. My organization, the Street Trust, engaged community members in 5 focus groups across 16 zip codes and 3 counties, represented by 94% non-white participants. I'm here to share some considerations from across these various tables in advance of your discussion and decisions here today. There are 4 aspects I want to highlight: investment priorities, mobility, safety, and public oversight. The pricing measures in front of you today we know are critical, but only if you implement them in ways that ensure trust with local government, including revenue sharing. Proceeds must be dedicated to funding for mitigating climate change and achieving equity. Public transit and active transportation we know are key in this respect. Continued oversight to ensure alignment between ODOT Nexus projects and RTP policies is also going to be key. We support the staff recommendations on pricing as written and do not support amendments proposed by ODOT which limit local jurisdictions' ability to see their concerns with these projects resolved. In particular, we consider the MTIP process an important accountability tool, and ODOT should be at the table for hashing out a revenue sharing strategy. They have critical information to the process that many partners won't, and we need to have these conversations at the regional tables. As far as the mobility policy, I understand that we have work to do understanding the impacts of accurately pricing the system, and we are doing much of that work at RTAC. In the meantime, the RTP can provide the framework we need to ensure local jurisdictions have the tools they need to deal with traffic congestion and road safety. For this reason, the 3 measures in the mobility policy must be implemented in tandem as written, so please reject any proposed amendments to unbundle them. On policy topic 1, investment priority section 2. JPAC has directed staff to work with the Oregon Department of Transportation on unbundling ODOT project number 12095 to provide more specificity about the location and project details to increase transparency and enable the projects to be included in the final RTP system analysis. We support this unbundling and prioritization. And finally, on policy topic 1, investment priority section 4.3, community engagement and input at the grassroots and grasstops levels has informed and improved the current RTP draft. Please do not strike on amendment as is forwarded to you by MPAC or MTAC, the oversight and review of a JPAC subcommittee, which includes representation from key partners and community reps. If any changes should be made to that, it should be to increase community representation, not to strike that oversight and review. Thank you very much. Good luck with your deliberations and conversation today. I look forward to seeing them at the TPAC table later on.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Director Iannarone.
Thank you. I'll just wait another second for anybody in the Zoom audience or our physical audience to put their hand up to testify. Okay, and not seeing any hands going up. Chair Jones-Dixon.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Connor. Now on to committee member communications. Is there anything that any of the community members would like to share? If so, you can raise your hand. And we'll start with Director Kim, or Committee Member Kim.
Hi there. Yeah, test, mic test. Sounds good?
Perfect.
Well, sorry everyone that I can't be there. I had a quick update, 3 updates actually from TriMet Board of Directors, and I'm happy to report that Red Line trains resumed service to and from the airport after our 126-day Better Red service disruption. So the new airport MAX station and the double tracking to the airport has now been completed. Extension to Hillsborough will be completed in August of next year. So thank you all for your patience with the service disruption. And of note, today, the board, we passed an ordinance to allow current and former members of U.S. Armed Forces to qualify for TriMet's discounted honored citizen fare, effective beginning on Veterans Day next month. And lastly, we are also seeking feedback through next Tuesday on the next batch of Forward Together transit service improvements. We're currently seeking public comment on next year's route and frequency changes and improved connections. There's a virtual open house happening right now, and one more tomorrow, and where you can weigh in online, and you can visit our website to provide comments. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other updates from committee members? Councilor.
Just want to take a moment. I know there's a lot going on internationally, and it is impacting our communities locally. So there have been some threats to some religious centers in this area, and just want to take a moment and remind us all to check in on our neighbors and make sure everyone's doing okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Hassan. And then if we have any other committee members here in the room, if you'd like to speak, you can just turn your name tag up, and that's helpful for me. Anyone else online?
Recording in progress.
Sorry. All right, perfect. Well, we'll move on to council updates from Councilor Wong.
Thank you, Chair Jones-Dixon. Got a couple updates today from across the region. So first, in affordable housing, the 1,000th unit of voter-approved affordable housing bond housing is scheduled to open in early November with the Good Shepherd Apartments in Happy Valley. There's a grand opening celebration scheduled for November 6th. And we are now ahead of our goals for the bond, having more than 4,000 units in the pipeline for a bond. And we told voters we'd build 3,900 units to house 12,000 people, and we are well on our way to housing more than 14,000. So some good news there, and exciting news for Happy Valley. In Parks and Nature, on the west side, the final round of voting for community choice grants launched last week and will be open through November 7th, along with project partners in District 4. Our team will be tabling at several community events throughout the month with opportunities for anyone who's 11 and older to vote on iPads for up to 5 projects. There's also going to be an event on the 28th at Centro to publicize voting. And as you may recall, the Community Choice Program is designed to give community members the power to imagine, design, and vote on what parks and nature projects they'd like to see in their communities. And engagement for this process has been driven by a focus on centering community members and the interests of District 4. And then once the community votes, those projects will go to council for consideration and approval in January. So I want to take a time to recognize and appreciate the partnership of the partners in District 4, including the Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District, cities of Beaverton, Forest Grove, Hillsborough, Cornelius, and Washington County for helping to lead this project. Some other parks and nature news. Thanks to voters, Metro is investing bond funds to keep Blue Lake fun, safe, healthy, and relevant for future generations by conducting much-needed upgrades to the park's water and sewer systems. The Blue Lake Regional Park is actually going to be closed to the public until late spring of 2024 for those upgrades, and we're seeking input from a region as we plan for the next stage of renovation at the park. Finally, on the land acquisition from Parks and Nature, our real estate team continues to build relationships with landowners across the region and create a pipeline for opportunities for acquisition in alignment with regional conservation priorities. Most recently, the team acquired a 53-acre property to fill a critical gap in the Tualatin River floodplain to protect 4,650 feet of the Tualatin River, an important drinking water source for Washington County, and supports native fish populations like salmon, steelhead, and lamprey. This is the 19th project completed with the 2019 bonds across 13 different target areas, comprising of 550 acres. So a lot of exciting news from all across the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wong. And we have Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chair. John Dixon, I just want to add one other minor item. There was a meeting today down in Woodburn to talk about the bill to reintroduce a study for the extension of commuter rail from Wilsonville down to Salem, which would basically an extension of the West Line. So I mentioned that there was a lot of support. It seems to be bipartisan support. The person who spoke in favor of it was Kevin Mannix, who is a representative, and so there was nobody in the audience opposed it. But anyhow, that would add some interest to the West Line priorities. They mentioned they hope that West would be a little higher priority.
Great. Thank you for that update. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda only consists of one item. It's the minutes from our last meeting on September 27th. I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Seconded, Commissioner Shaw.
Moved by Councilor Hassan and second by Commissioner Treese or Vice Chair Treese. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. Looks like motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to the action items. We'll start with item 6.1, MPAC recommendation on the Regional Transportation Plan, also known as the RTP. As we all know, we have a very important discussion and vote ahead of us tonight to recommend approval of the 2023 RTP to the Metro Council. This topic has come to us many times over the course of this update. As you may recall, at our last meeting, we discussed each of the 5 policy topics, and staff took your feedback on each. The recommended RTP before us tonight reflects your input and also reflects MTAC's work and recommendations. I would like to invite Catherine Ciarlo and Kim Ellis to join the table to present on this item. Catherine is joining us virtually, and Kim is here with us in person. Catherine and Kim, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will kick it off. I'm Catherine Ciarlo, Director of the Planning, Development, and Research Department at Metro. I apologize for not being there today. I had a previously scheduled trip, but it's so great to see everyone in the room. Thanks for having us here to talk one last time about the Regional Transportation Plan. This is the final MPAC discussion of many on this topic. And as you all know, the RTP is the required document that enables projects in our region to receive federal transportation funding. So it's an important document. Tonight, you're actually going to review the MTAC recommendation from their meeting last week. And you will provide your recommendation to the Metro Council for their vote in late November. The recommendation that you guys provide tonight will also serve as the jumping off point for next Friday's TPAC conversation. So as you'll see in Kim's slides, the recommendation, which began with a Metro staff recommendation, has gone through a number of iterations and will continue to do so for a couple more. And then the TPAC conversation and their recommendation will be the starting point for JPAC's final discussion and vote on November 16th. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, leading up to this meeting, your staff have been really helpful. They've been actively collaborating with each other, with us as Metro staff. You'll doubtless see a lot of your jurisdiction's fingerprints on the MTAC recommendation that's before you. And Kim will walk you through that recommendation. And then you'll have a chance to discuss it, to vote on different elements. I just want to thank you in conclusion and your staff for the continued work and consideration on this complicated and long-standing effort. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim to give you some more details on the recommendation. Thanks again.
Great, thank you, Catherine. And I'm excited to be here tonight to ask for your recommendation to the Metro Council. Next slide, please. And just to orient you more to tonight's action, we are going to have you make recommendations on a series of actions similar to what we did with MPAC last week. The first is to, there's what is called Exhibit C Part 2, which is many recommended changes in response to the comments that we received that we'll be asking you to approve, recommend approval as a bundle. We will walk through each of the discussion items that you had an opportunity to talk about last month. Your feedback from last month is reflected in the recommendation that is before you today from MPAC, but we'll take each of those 5 discussion topics individually. And then at the end, we will ask for your overall recommendation to the Metro Council on approval of the Regional Transportation Plan. And that recommendation would include those consent items, as I described, each of the discussion items as you recommend them, and then the ordinance and its exhibits. And Roger is here to help us navigate this, along with Chair Jens Dixon. But this is the essence of tonight's recommendation on MPAC. So I'm from MPAC. I will walk through each of these items briefly before turning it over for your discussion and deliberation. Next slide. As Catherine said, we have been working on this for a little over 2 years now, since we kicked off the scoping phase. We have had many discussions at the policy level, at the technical level, with community, with business, to get to this point. And we are working to have the plan adopted by the end of this month or end of November before the current plan expires. MPAC plays a very important role in advising the Metro Council on land use actions under state law. This regional transportation plan also serves as the regional transportation system plan that we also work to meet statewide planning goals. And so your role is to make a formal recommendation to the Metro Council in that role. Next slide. This just highlights the many opportunities that we provided throughout the process to provide feedback, review, discuss from the public, local governments, agencies. We relied on our existing advisory committees, policy and technical, including Metro's Committee on Racial Equity, to help shape the goals and vision in the plan, as well as updating the policies. But we also had stakeholder interviews, many different public engagement, working in partnership with community-based organizations to engage directly with marginalized communities, provide opportunities to bring more of those voices to this process from all across the region. And then also a series of joint workshops that JPAC, the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, and the Metro Council around many of these same policy topics that you will be discussing tonight that have been shaping where we are and as the plan continues to be finalized. Next slide. And so this decision is informed by all of that. And the Metro staff recommendations that we presented to you last month really respond to all of the feedback we've been hearing throughout this process, but in particular as well, the public comments that we received as part of the final public comment period this summer. A report of that was provided in your meeting packet last month. It's also available on the Metro website. But the recommendations that we provided, that MPAC has brought forward to you, are responding with many specific changes to the plan in response to all of that feedback. Next slide. So as I said, the recommendation that you're being asked to make to the Metro Council is divided into two parts and really is the Exhibit C to the ordinance. And then the Part 1 are the policy topics that we'll walk through individually for action. And then the Part 2 are what we have called the consent items that were, MTAC has recommended be recommended for approval without further discussion. Next slide. These are the 5 topics that I'll hit very high level what the recommendations are, and if there are questions or you want to see more of the specifics, we can do that, but I will just give a brief overview of each of these 5 topics. Next slide. The first topic is around the investment emphasis in the plan. The recommendations really that have been brought forward to you are working to continue to align the project list with the goals and policies of the RTP. That includes recommendations to unbundle the ODOT safety projects you heard testimony about this evening. But also other recommendations for us to, as a region, continue to provide more regular reports on safety investments that are being made. We know the trends are not moving in the right direction around safety with continued increases in deaths and serious injuries on our transportation system and continued reporting of those deaths and serious injuries, but also how we're investing as a region to get to our Vision Zero target is an important way to continue to keep track and see what adjustments may be needed. There's also very specific recommendations looking forward to the next regional transportation plan update. We do this every 5 years. And there are, we think, some additional process improvements that we can do learning from this and past RTP updates. And this includes reviewing our measures and evaluation tools, providing additional guidance to agencies as they submit projects. All of the projects in the Regional Transportation Plan were submitted by a city, county, TriMet, the Oregon Department of Transportation, SMART, Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, as well as one other that I'm not thinking on the top of my head. But every agency in the region has provided projects to this. These projects came from your plans, studies that were adopted through a public process. Another piece of refinement that we think is warranted is to build in the next process a longer review and refinement period. Because of the federal timeline that we were working within, we didn't have as much time, I think, as we all would have liked to have the project submitted, do the evaluation, and then have opportunity for refinement and discussion around what kinds of refinements can help us get closer to our goals. And then a new piece that was added as part of the MTAC recommendation was a recommendation to continue to work to provide improved coordination, but also support the smaller cities in the region as they're participating in this process. It is long, it is a lot of work and detail, particularly around the projects, and for us to continue to find ways to support them in participating in this process when they don't have as many staff available to do so. The next slide, please. The second area, and this is one that has been subject to a lot of discussion and is focused on implementation of the pricing policy that is included in the Regional Transportation Plan. It was further developed as part of this process, and the policy that is recommended in the Regional Transportation Plan was developed to help ensure regional concerns around the 2 projects that are undergoing the NEPA process, continue to follow through on commitments that have been adopted, as well as ensuring that as those projects go forward, that they're consistent with these policies, which really are directly aimed at addressing many of the regional and local concerns that continue to be raised about them. So the recommendations and further action are specific to that. And then also as those projects come forward for future funding through the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, which is the equivalent of a local capital investment program, that those actions and decisions by JPAC and the Metro Council will also have a documentation of how those projects are consistent with the pricing policies and that they are following through on addressing the commitments that were specifically identified and adopted to address those local and regional concerns. Next slide. The third area, topic area, is around funding. This is something that has continued to be an important priority, and the recommendations that are included in your packet are aimed around securing more funding for projects in the region. That means expanding our efforts to work together locally, regionally, and at the state level, really having JPAC have a work program, particularly next year, that's really helping the region prepare for upcoming state level funding discussions, the 2025 legislative session, looking for ways in which to increase the competitiveness of our region for federal funding. There are many new federal funding opportunities, and it's important for our region to be ready to take advantage of those as we go forward, potentially researching potential new revenues, and then also really working even harder. We've been working hard as a region for more funding for transit, but doing more. That's a really central part of our land use vision, our transportation vision for the future, and we need long-term sustainable funding for transit to be successful. Next slide. The fourth area is around the climate analysis and tools. We are working to update our climate analysis. You heard testimony tonight about the concerns around some of the assumptions that we've used. I want to be really clear that we are following the rules that have been set out for us for our climate analysis, but we do agree that some of the statewide assumptions that were used to set our targets, some of them are overly optimistic, or they aren't tracking with the trends that we're seeing. So we are looking to update that analysis to show what effect that would have. But we are also have recommendations for us to continue to improve our evaluation and modeling tools for now and into the future. Also requesting the state to conduct a review as they're required to do by June of 2025 to really look at some of those key state assumptions that are underlying our strategy and targets to determine what is not on track, what is on track, and potentially make refinements to them as part of that process that we can then address and account for in our next update to the Regional Transportation Plan. And then there are also some specific recommendations around what can we do locally and at the regional level to continue to support the electrification transition that complements federal and state actions that have been happening. Next slide. And then the last area is around the mobility policy. The mobility policy update was a joint effort, or is a joint effort of Metro and the Oregon Department of Transportation. And there is some additional work for us to do to finalize the policy before it can be implemented. These recommendations that are included in your packet acknowledge that, recognize that, and identify specific actions for us to take in the next year as we go forward to complete that technical work, but then also work with partners locally and at the state level to update the Regional Transportation Functional Plan to implement that. So specific recommendations in there, really direct completing that work, and then also just being very explicit that local implementation of that policy wouldn't occur until after the Regional Transportation Functional Plan update is complete. Next slide. So this is the ordinance that is before you and is part of the overall package that we'll be asking you to approve, ordinance number 23-1496. Exhibit A is the public review draft regional transportation plan and appendices that were released for public review. We also have amendments in Exhibit B to the regional framework plan. Those amendments are necessary to ensure that the goals and objectives in the regional transportation plan are the same in the regional framework plan, so they're verbatim the same. Exhibit C, which is all of the recommended changes and actions as a result of, to respond to the public comments. And then Roger will be developing Exhibit D, which is going to be our findings to demonstrate how we're comply with the statewide planning goals. Next slide. So these are the final steps here. Catherine, in her opening remarks, highlighted that TPAC will be making their recommendation to JPAC at their November 3rd meeting. JPAC is scheduled to make their final recommendation at their November 16th meeting, and then the Metro Council will have a work session where we will present your recommendation as well as TPAC's recommendation on November 7th, and then they're scheduled for final action on November 30th. So there is still time, but we are at the end of the process here and working to have the plan adopted. Next slide. So with that, I will turn it over to Chair Jones-Dixon to walk us through the action items before us.
Great. Thank you, Kim.
Happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for all the work that you and the team have been doing to put this together. We're going to go over just before we begin to the voting on the RTP, we have just a specific process, and we have Roger here to walk us through all of that. But before that, I'm going to read this. As we move into voting on the RTP package, I would like to just again review the procedure for voting on each item. We have 7 actions to take today. As mentioned, a vote on the consent agenda, or on the consent items that have been bundled, one each on the discussion topics previously identified, and one final action on the whole RTP, including the ordinance and exhibits. As we move through each item, I will call for a motion and a second. After a motion and second have been made, then I will call for discussion on the item. I understand that there may be some amendments. I've talked to a couple committee members. I just ask that you hold those amendments until we have the item on the table. Again, Roger has a few things to review with us as it pertains to the procedures.
Thank you, Chair Jones-Dixon, and good evening, members of the committee. Roger Alfred, Office of Metro Attorney. I'm just going to speak briefly about procedure on voting tonight. We're informed that there are likely to be a couple of proposed amendments, and as you all probably know, I think many of you are elected officials, so you probably have been through this a lot, but the amendment process can get a little tricky, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And that is, we're going to begin with a motion and a second on the MTAC recommendation to get that on the table, and then we can have discussion on that. And then if there are any proposed amendments, that would be the time to make a motion for an amendment. And then that motion would also require a second, at which point we could move into discussion and deliberation on the amendment. And so if there is no second, then of course that amendment motion fails. If there is a second, then we would go to a vote on the amendment. If it passes, we then go back to the original motion as amended. And if it fails, we go back to the original motion as it was originally proposed. So that's, that's the big picture description, and then we'll be able to talk a little bit about this, I'm sure, as we move along. Question?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So given this structure, if you would not vote for a section without the amendment, you're being forced to vote initially before actually having any opportunity for an amendment?
Correct. The idea is to get the MTAC recommendation on the table first, and then we wouldn't necessarily have to have a vote on that initial motion until after there is a proposed amendment. So there would still be an opportunity to amend.
Okay, is this standard Robert's Rules of Order? I'm confused by this.
Yeah.
Because it's
It
the
is.
opposite. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move to the first action item, which is, and I'll call for a motion. On action item 1.
So moved. Second.
Second. Any discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
It looks like the motion passes with majority. This is a little different, but we will make it. We'll get through this. Let's go to action item number 2. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Martin and second by Councilor Hassan. Any discussion on the motion?
This is on, just to clarify, this the second action here is on the investment emphasis set of recommendations in the discussion topic 1.
Thank you, Kim. So moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Hassan. Any discussion on this motion? Looks like we have President Sherman, or committee member Sherman.
Thank you very much. This is the point where we would make an amendment, or? Yes. Okay, just want to make sure I've got this down. And I do just want to thank staff and MPAC for Herculean work in getting this information to us. Nothing I like more than 245 pages of highly technical documentation to get my blood going. So in this section, I bring a couple of very minor edits from the staffs of Lake Oswego, Oregon City, and Happy Valley. Specifically, in section 1 now, do we have, I think, were these submitted where they can be put up on the screen, or?
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
so I'm not speaking through each of them at length. But these are pretty quick and easy ones, and I think with all the potentially moving parts of the RTP, there are just a couple of things that might have been left out of the mix. So under ensure accountability, where it talks about just ensuring project partners are accountable, et cetera. Specifically, it does call out interstate bridge replacement, I-5 Rose Quarter, and the 205 toll project. Regional mobility pricing project was not included in that list. I would like to have that amended to incorporate that into the list as well. And then also there is a phrase in that same section referring to they're accountable to adopted commitments and desired outcomes. A lot of the comments I'm going to have tonight kind of reference back to the original letter of agreement between ODOT Director Strickler and Metro President Peterson. And so what I don't know is whether that is considered officially an adopted document or an adopted commitment. So I would move to strike the word adopted from that sentence. And then finally moving on in the bottom of that in section 4, if you can scroll down a little bit, it's under the improve RTP project list development and review process. Just talking about Metro convening a group to review Metro's existing metrics and tools for evaluating safety, climate, and equity. Two topics that have come up that I think are very important to incorporate in this are also mobility and economic development. That's been a really high threshold that we've talked about quite a bit lately. So those would be kind of the key things within this section that I would respectfully move to incorporate as part of this document.
Great, thank you, Councilor Sherman. Roger, would you be able to restate or just summarize the?
Oh, I don't know if I can summarize that. I might have to rely on you to summarize that. Sorry, I was also looking at a couple other items here, but we would need, to move forward with the proposed amendment, we will still need a second.
Okay,
Okay.
so that I can make a motion on these 3 changes that I specified, and, okay, so I respectfully move to make the changes to the MTAC recommended actions as proposed.
Seconded by Commissioner Shull, Clackamas County.
Great, thank you, Councilor Scholl. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Well, I was just going to see if, just make sure that there's no discussion.
Oh, any,
But yeah.
I apologize.
On the amendment.
Any discussion on the proposed amendment?
I just like to make a comment.
Yes, Councilor.
Clackamas County supports Commissioner Sherman's proposal. It's very important that we encourage collaboration between MTAC and ODOT. Thank you, Councilor Sherman.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
There's someone opposed. Mayor.
Sherry French.
Sorry, Mayor Rosner, did you have a comment?
No, I was a aye.
Great, thank you. And committee member French, were you an aye or a nay? And no. Looks like it passes. Thank you.
So at this point, we need to move back and have another vote on the original motion as amended. So what would now be before the committee would be the motion as amended by the amendment that was just approved, and that's already been moved and seconded, so we could just move to a vote on that.
Great, exactly what Roger said. We will vote on the amendment, and it looks like we have a point of order. Thank you.
Yeah, point of order, as a matter of, since this is a public meeting, should we reprise exactly what the amendments were? Summarize them so that they're on the record?
Yes.
Yeah, I think if Jay can pull them back up, we can show them, it shows and track changes the exact words that Councilor Sherman proposed. Yeah, so under recommendation number 1 for policy topic 1, adding a reference to the regional mobility pricing project into the list of projects, and then also striking the word adopted in recognition that the commitments, there are adopted commitments, but there's also a letter of agreement that was not formally adopted between ODOT and the Metro Council president. And then down and under number 4 for policy topic 1, adding mobility and economic development into the list. And that actually, all 5 of those there, climate, safety, equity, mobility, and economic development, are the RTP 5 goals. So that's a great addition.
Great. All in favor, say.
I have a couple of cards.
Oh, I'd even.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor
I just
Buck.
have a question. Thank you, Chair. If we have questions about projects on the constrained list, when is the time to bring up those questions?
Now,
Okay, well, I have a question. It seems that the RMPP has, all phases of it have been added as a $400 million project on the constrained list. And I think in, representing the cities in Clackamas County, we have a lot of concerns with all phases of that project being added to the constrained list, meaning that there would be no further regional dialogue on the RMPP, a very well ill-defined and project that I would imagine a lot of people are not even aware of. It's important that we include a portion, probably the PE portion of the RMPP on the constraint list, but not all phases of the project. So if we wanted to make changes to that, would now be the time to make, well, then I would like to propose an amendment that we edit the constrained project list to include only the PE phase of the RMPP instead of all phases.
yeah, this is part of, yeah, so maybe it would be best to do that as part of the topic 2 discussion.
Okay.
Because it is specific to the pricing policy implementation.
Okay.
So that's a,
Councilor Sherman or committee? Just. Kirsten, committee member Kirsten.
Just wanted to ask if I could clarify with Mayor Buck what project you're referring
Director
to?
Green?
The regional mobility pricing plan.
Thank you, no worries. Thank you for clarifying that, the regional mobility pricing project.
So there was just a question, just for point of clarification, and then it's going to be moved on to the next topic. So.
you might, I don't know what the project number, they need to
I'll
vote.
try not to.
We need a vote on that. Right, we still need to vote on the.
Investment.
Yes.
All right, so, yeah, we do still need to have a vote on the motion as amended. And then we'll move on to topic 2, which is the point where Mayor Buck, his proposed amendment, I think, can be considered.
Okay, great. So now we will vote on the proposed amendment from Councilor Sherman from discussion topic 1, the investment emphasis. All in favor, say aye.
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 Was there a motion?
Did we
Oh,
have a
do we
motion
have-
in a second?
I don't think we had a motion on
we
the
did.
floor.
We did.
Not for the amendment.
We did. We moved and seconded
Bucks is,
on
that's not happening.
the proposed amendment And then now we're moving back to the original motion.
Original motion.
So,
So this is the motion with.
But my comment is that I didn't think that we had a motion for the original motion that's amended. So in other words, I don't think we had a motion for, yours was a motion.
Yes, well, the first, there was a motion for the amendment, and then we just went back, but the question was, I think, was there a first and a second on going back to the
Yes, that's what I'm
section
saying.
that we just voted on?
I don't think there
Was there a first and a
was.
section to that? Or first and a second?
I don't
remember that.
So I think that's really implicit in the amendment, the fact that we voted on the amendment to the original motion and it was approved, which means we can then move back to the
And we don't have
original
it, and we don't
motion
have.
without a separate action. So
Oh.
we can go back now and have a vote on the original
Okay.
motion
Thank
as
you.
it has been amended.
Thank you for explaining that.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Roger?
Sure, yes, so we're ready for a vote on the motion as amended. On policy topic 1.
Perfect. Thank you, Roger, for your support. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Um,
I believe it passes unanimously.
For the record, Chair Jones-Dixon, Commissioner French put in the chat, I will just read this out. For the record, all here are maybes and proposals, no definite answers. I vote no on all presented tonight.
Okay, not unanimous, per committee member French's comments, and thank you, Connor. So we'll move on to action 3, discussion topic 2, pricing policy implementation. Discussion topic 2 is considering approval on the MPAC recommendation for the pricing policy implementation. Do I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of MPAC's recommendation for pricing policy implementation?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Hassan.
Second?
Second by Councilor Sherman. Is there a discussion on the motion?
Well, can we go back, I guess, go back to the question of the
Yes.
amendment to the RMPP? So I just, as we even heard in public comment, we've been discussing ODOT's continued engagement on pricing throughout the region is important. And so that's why I bring this amendment forth, to ensure that ODOT continues to engage with Metro, JPAC, and all of our local jurisdictions as we move through the RMPP. So I would again move that we amend the constraint list to reflect just the PE portion of the RMPP.
Thank you. Are you responding to? Can I get, is there
I can
a,
second that. I'll second it. This is Mayor Resnick.
It's tricky with some people online, right?
That looks
So
like-
I think I heard a second.
yeah, Mayor Rosner, second.
Okay, great.
All in favor of the?
We should have, I think some people want to have some comments, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have
Counselor.
some discussion on the proposed amendment.
We can start with you, Councilor Sherman.
Thank you. Just point of clarification. So when you're talking about this right now, everything's being proposed as a bundle. You're proposing that this gets separated out and each one is added as a singular item?
Yes.
Well,
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Let me,
Yeah.
just that we'd include on the constraint list, the PE portion. ODOT would come back then with amendments as they add future phases of the RMPP.
Okay, so for the entire package, it's PE only? Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. Councilor Martin.
Yeah, similar question, but just keep following up. So the intent here is to make sure that ODOT comes back to Metro to update the RTP for any given RMPP-related item.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Chair, if I may, I could describe how that could be done. I don't have the project number off the top of my head, but we can get that so that it's part of the record. But traditionally, major projects are on the RTP project list by multiple phases. And so the I-205 toll project, for example, currently in the current RTP, just the preliminary engineering phase is in there, and that allows for the NEPA work to continue as needed to plan those projects. And then then you have construction phases, and that's basically what then implements what is developed through that NEPA process. It would require, it would require a future amendment to the regional transportation plan if it is not in the financially constrained list. It can be part of the strategic project list or not at all. So those are options that are available as part of making a recommendation. But in order for them to move forward for federal funding, federal decisions, they need to be in the financially constrained list. So it does provide a way in which JPAC and the Metro Council and MPAC, because MPAC would have a role in making a recommendation on an amendment to the RTP, just as you did for the I-205 toll project, to have further regional discussion of any future proposed amendments.
Thank you, Kim. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, I have a question about details about safety. Would this be a good time to talk about it on the RTP constrained projects list? Yes?
Or should we
Or
act
wait.
on this
Wait till later.
particular? Yeah.
Just let them finish the conversation.
Yeah, I think the conversation on this proposed amendment would probably be, and what this would, I think, do is we would add that as a recommended action to this list of recommended, so it would be a new, number 2, action number 2, to policy topic 2, to make this project list change.
So I think that what we're hearing here is that if there's further discussion on this specific proposed amendment, we should have that discussion now. And I believe it sounds like maybe Commissioner Scholl has a separate issue that he'd like to raise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Roger. Commissioner Treese, or Vice Chair Treese.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reemphasize what you said that about the federal needs, but also that this list is a 20-year list. So that's a long period of time as well.
Great, thank you. Councilor Watt.
Great. Thank you, Chair. And just as for all committee members, Metro councilors don't vote in this process, but we're here to take your advice. So thank you for providing that. I did have 2 questions. If these amendments were adopted by MPAC, do they then go to JPAC as a proposal with these amendments? I'm just trying to make sure that there's like it's feasible going forward, both kind of from a procedural perspective of JPAC and Metro Council, but also that it's feasible in a project delivery sense, and that we're not nipping the project right now, but still allowing it to proceed with future engagement and modification of the RTP as needed.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Wong. So we will bring MPAC's recommendation to TPAC, the Transportation Policy Alternatives Committee, which makes a recommendation to JPAC. So this would be something that we would bring to them to take action on, to consider, and as part of their recommendation to JPAC. They will make their recommendation, and so I won't presume what the outcome of that. The Oregon Department of Transportation, they're not here to speak to that project, but they would be at the TPAC table as well as the JPAC table, and certainly we would work with them on, we would need to work with them on what the details of that in terms of like the cost, how the different phases would be described. So there would be some more technical details that we would need to work out beyond the overall recommendation that has been put on the table. But it is something that can be discussed, considered, and we would bring it forward to all of the subsequent bodies that will be acting on the RTP.
Thank you, Kim. Mayor Rosner.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to just say I like Mayor Buck's idea about separating this out and putting the PE portion in the constrained funds, and with the goal of encouraging more dialogue with ODOT as they move through this process.
Thank you, Mayor Rosner.
So
Commissioner Rubio.
So I don't have huge, well, it's not a huge deal, but Are there concerns that this, if we did go forward with this amendment, that it could slow down the process of acquiring any federal funds?
That would be something we'll need to talk with ODOT staff. I don't have this was not something that we were prepared for tonight to have all the details. So those will be things that we'll need to talk with ODOT staff about as part of bringing this forward.
Thank you. Roger?
So I believe I think we're complete on the amendment proposed by Mayor Buck. So, my understanding, I think, is that Commissioner Scholl has another comment that might be unrelated to this specific amendment.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we can go ahead now and have a vote on the amendment as proposed by Mayor Buck.
Call for a vote for the amendment that Mayor Buck proposed. Could you just restate the amendment, and then I'll call for the vote?
The amendment is to amend the constrained list to modify the RMPP project, confine the RMPP project just to the PE phase.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? I believe it's still just committee member.
Nay. No, nay.
No,
Me.
sorry.
Nay.
Oh,
Nay.
nay for Commissioner Rubio and Vice Chair Treese and Councilor Hassan and Councilor Martin.
also Martin.
So I'm counting 4 nays.
Should we do a roll call?
Maybe we should, I think maybe we might want to do a roll call. Yeah.
Connor, can you lead us through a roll call vote,
Yes.
please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Sharon Myron.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Carmen Rubio.
Nay.
Omar Khattab.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Shull.
Aye.
Mayor Joe Buck.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Councilor Brett Sherman.
Aye.
Ed Gronke.
Aye.
Commissioner Pam Treese.
Nay.
Councilor Anthony Martin.
Nay.
Councilor Nadia Hassan.
Nay.
Mayor Tim Rosner.
Aye.
Vice President Gordon Huvies.
Yay.
Luis Nava.
Aye.
Thomas Kim.
Yay.
And Chair Jones Dixon.
Yeah, yes.
Or actually, I don't think the chair votes, sorry. But I believe it passes, Roger?
Yeah, I counted 12 ayes and 4 noes. So we need, with the number that we have here present, I think we need 9 to pass something. So that would pass.
Could I ask a question, just procedural? We took a vote from Sherry French without her being present, but now I don't think we can we?
No, we can't.
No,
So,
we can't.
so we
I just
took
wanted
the
to-
one that she was actually here for, but
You can't
she would
vote
have
in
to be
absentia,
present.
yes.
So she can't
just
vote
wanted
via
to-
chat.
I wanted to clarify that.
Yes,
That would be easy.
thank you for
That's easy.
that, thank you for that clarification. Oh, I don't think we have any abstentions.
No abstentions.
No. Okay, so the amendment passes. We're back to the main motion as amended. And we can now have a discussion on that if needed, or we can move straight into a vote.
Okay.
Looks like we have-
I believe
Commissioner Scholl had a
Councilor
Commissioner
Scholl.
That's right. Sorry, Commissioner Scholl had a comment too.
Yeah, my question has to do with the RTP constrained project list. Details about safety that are included in the description of the I-205 tolling project 12099. The level of detail is not seen in other projects, and I'd like to read a quote out of what the RTP says. It says, quote, "Due to the proposed highway improvements, tolling and lane configuration changes, the number of crashes on I-205 in the project area, including crashes resulting in fatalities and injuries, is expected to be 20% lower than representing 144 crashes." We'd like to see that removed. We're concerned about how that information was substantiated, and we're very concerned about presenting a picture that makes it look like we're going to have a more or a safer situation when we expect diversion on our side streets to result in many accidents. So I'm wondering if we could just remove that information about safety.
Commissioner Scholl, so Commissioner Scholl is referring to the project description that was provided by ODOT for that I-205 widening project. And they provided that information to demonstrate that the project itself, the I-205 widening, would be addressing safety needs in that corridor as part of the widening project. So that information, that was the source of it. They were using their safety data and other analysis that they had done as part of the I-205 NEPA work to provide that assessment.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And I believe we have to.
Well, so I wonder if Commissioner Scholl, could you restate your proposal in the form of a motion for us?
Let me take a stab at it.
Okay.
I would like to move to eliminate details regarding safety from the RTP as it pertains to its description of the I-205 tolling project. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you had, I think, had the project number. It was a
Yeah,
12099.
the project number that I referenced was project 12099.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Sherman.
I just want to make sure I understand. So does this tie specifically to this top policy topic that we're talking about? I mean, does it fall into this specific part of the document? I'm just trying to understand. When we come back to vote on this policy topic, will this be included as part of this, or is this a different part of the RTP?
It is part of the I-205 tolling project description, but it's more of a project list change than pricing policy implementation, which this policy topic is addressing.
So if we take a vote on it now, I mean, I think it's still a very valid point. If we take a vote on it now, does it become part of this amendment that we're then going to vote on later, or this policy topic?
We can treat it separately, I think.
Okay, that's fine, Yep, fair enough. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Treese.
Thank you, Chair. So now I'm confused because my understanding is that we're voting on policy topic number 2. And the amendment is not about policy topic number 2, to your point.
At the end.
So this is not about what the amendment is, it's about where it fits.
Right.
And I might have separate votes on the 2 amendments that we're looking at for this policy. And I don't think that your amendment fits into this policy piece. I think we could table it and treat it separately in relationship to the project list.
Item 7.
Item 7? Thank you.
Yeah, that's the one where we're voting on everything. That seems like the place where we could talk about this.
Great, thank you. Roger and
So,
Kim?
yeah, Kim and I, just in a sidebar, we're coming to the same conclusion I think that Commissioner Treese did, which is that I think it would make the most sense to address this motion separately.
Okay.
Perhaps at the end when we take all of them up in one, because it is not necessarily correlated directly to the pricing policy.
Thank you.
Okay. So I lost track of where we were. We had a motion and a second. So, we're, I think, we're going to table that motion.
Yes.
To move to table.
Might as well.
Yeah.
I move to table the amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor
Tabling.
tabling the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, looks like that passes unanimously.
Okay, so we can go back to discussion on the motion as amended. And, yeah.
Do we have a motion to, Counselor Sherman?
Thank you. Apologize for getting a little wonky here. I know that we've got some amendments we can bring up in policy topic 2, and I just want to run through them very quickly. These are really in alignment with memorializing the letter of agreement between ODOT and Metro. These are in coordination with City of Portland, Clackamas County, and the cities of Lake Oswego and Oregon City. Specifically in this section, I don't know if you've got the ability to pull this up on the screen. Okay, perfect. I apologize for that. Under policy topic 2, section 1, there's just some language that is repetitive based on kind of the overarching theme of this, and so I would make a motion, or I would recommend removing. You can see in that section, specific allocation decisions regarding the revenues from toll projects are made by the OTC using an extensive public engagement process. That does come up later in the document. I've also kind of gone ahead and created some bullets from these so that it's a little bit more readable. Specifically creating an item, sub-item 2. And this really does go into the language between President Peterson and Director Strickler, kind of committed to the local input in the direction of tolling revenue, and memorializing that concept, making sure that regional representation has a significant majority voice in the advisory body, which was specified in that letter. And so under that section, I would add the language, ODOT has made a series of commitments to ensure that pricing projects contained in ODOT's urban mobility strategy align with the pricing policy in the 2023 RTP as documented in appendix blank, whatever the appropriate appendix would be, to ensure continuing accountability with those commitments. Just below, in that area, we would also incorporate language, JPAC and Metro Council shall coordinate with regional partners, including ODOT, on a proposed total revenue, and then lower in that segment, as we talk about, shall provide testimony to the OTC in support of the collaboratively developed toll revenue sharing approach, and ODOT shall present the approach to the OTC for consideration prior to January 1st, 2026. That would essentially, if we're going to expend a lot of resources developing a revenue sharing approach, there should be a commitment to bring the approach back to OTC before toll collection starts. Under section B in that area, I would also incorporate language. Granted, the IBR is a little bit different than the other projects, but if we're able to incorporate an equity overlay on top of that, I think it's a reasonable thing to do. So at the end of that section, it would read, ODOT shall, however, seek opportunities to incorporate the equity framework of the EMAC where appropriate into all pricing programs. So that would bring IBR into the mix as well. And then getting into the next section, as we talk about ODOT evaluating, documenting, and addressing diversion, there's a portion that we would strike out. We would strike out a small portion of that, and it would then become a little bit larger section where, as part of the ongoing NEPA analysis consistent with federal requirements and the additional commitments made by ODOT referenced in key policy topic 2, recommended action 1.a, consistent with these commitments and to inform decision-making, ODOT shall provide participating agencies with technical information regarding anticipated short and long-term safety and mobility impacts resulting from tolling, including but not limited to, and then they talk about the maps, because in that section, it's very difficult to make decisions with a limited amount of data, and so this provides a broader scope, not a mandated scope, but a broader scope to provide additional data to the jurisdictions so we can make good decisions on this information. And then finally, and I apologize for the lengthy information, in section, that same subtopic under D, we're talking about utilizing the Metro Regional Travel Demand Model, et cetera. In the end, we're talking about raising revenues needed for expansion and minimizing diversion, and their language was in the project area. I would strike in the project area, just because in a regional system, we want to make sure that, toll projects can have a ripple effects outside the area. So it would be we would provide a greater area that this can be, that would potentially be impacted. And then finally, in section E, JPAC and Metro Council, I would strike should and incorporate shall, clarify expectation of ODOT to prepare findings, et cetera. And I believe, and previous ODOT commitments with the Metro Council are addressed. And I believe that is the end of my comments. Sorry for all of the lengthy stuff. Any questions? I'm happy to take questions.
So I would consider that a motion from.
Thank you very much. I would move to accept these amendments as proposed.
Great. Second.
We're opening up for discussion. We'll start with Councilor Hassan.
Yeah, thank you for the amendments. I'm just curious from a staff perspective how this impacts all the things.
I think thank you for the question. These do, I think, just provide more clarity around the original recommendations that were brought forward from Metro staff to MPAC and TPAC, and as were forwarded to you for your consideration. I think also that particularly on the second set of recommendation or subsection 2, ODOT has made a series of commitments to ensure that pricing projects contained in ODOT's urban mobility strategy align with the pricing policy in the RTP. It's putting back in place that something that was removed as part of the MTAC deliberation, where ODOT is working to get to that revenue sharing approach. So this is saying we're all going to work together to do that in a more direct way than how it came to you from MTAC.
Thank you. Councilor Treese, or Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair. A couple questions. We at the MPAC table sit here without ODOT representation. I mean, that's the way we're structured. The JPAC table does have ODOT representation, correct? So I'm thinking about what the response would be, and I'm putting that through my process as I'm thinking about these amendments. I understand the direction of the amendments. I don't understand if the RTP as a whole can direct ODOT to do that type of work.
Thank you.
And I believe I'm asking staff.
Yeah, and we have Catherine. Catherine's here. Thank you.
I'll weigh in on this, and then I would like Kim to weigh in on it too. Thank you for that question. What the RTP does in the context of what we've been discussing, which is very specifically holding to public commitments and working with ODOT to develop a revenue sharing strategy around pricing or tolling. The RTP sets out the expectation of the regional partners that they are a part of that conversation. The RTP itself can't usurp ODOT's authority, but what it can do is say very clearly that the regional partners, as they move these projects forward, are going to want to be involved in these discussions. And that when these projects come back to the Metro Council and come back to JPAC, that the regional partners have staked out a clear statement of expectation to be involved in these conversations. Welcome Kim's input on that as well.
I don't have anything to add. That's my assessment as well.
And I'm particularly sensitive when I look at think about the revisions, about the point where we moved, the amendment was to move from should to shall, because I believe that we had a reaction in the reverse when it was ODOT telling us what to do. So I just put that out on the table. It's not that I disagree, but I want to make sure that we're all aware of what we're saying when we're doing this.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Treese. We have Catherine, and then we'll go to Councilor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate that sensitivity, and I think that just goes back to the place we started with this conversation, which is where this body sits in that flow over the next few weeks. Your recommendation is a recommendation to council. It says very clearly what you would like to see happen. Will also serve as that starting point for the TPAC discussion. TPAC will talk about it. They will make a recommendation to JPAC, and it's really JPAC where the vote will happen. So, you know, I would expect a different kind of conversation with ODOT at the table, but some of you are at that table as well. So, you know, I think you have said it correctly, Commissioner Treese, that the conversation will sound different when ODOT is in the room.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
My question is related particularly to the timeline of January 1, 2026, and the correlation between that and the amendment that Mayor Buck proposed about limiting the project costs to preliminary evaluation. Those two things together were the thing that I just wanted to make sure. Does that hamstring ODOT in being able to expend funds, or alternatively, does that obligate Metro to do anything by a certain date? It's those two things coming together is the only piece that I want to make sure, like, do those two conflict?
Are you able to, or staff, are you, Kim or Catherine, are you able to shed light on that?
Well, I think the January 1st deadline is tied to the governor's pause on any tolls being initiated to occur after that date. And I think there are reporting that ODOT is required to do as part of following through on the governor's I don't know what the form of the action was. It wasn't an executive order, I don't believe. And in terms of your question about does this direct Metro to have something completed by then? I think I guess a question would be if there wasn't an approach agreed upon by that date, then there can't be testimony in support or on behalf of that approach. So I think that is a consideration that is important to think about. So maybe shall is not the correct word in that case.
Yeah, just to follow up and finalize, it's one of those where just since we're wading into things and ODOT and staff are able to provide support, but ODOT's not here to be able to say, here's why the whole project for RMPP is included, or here's how this impacts. I think that's where, as we continue making these amendments, that it gets onto that less sure footing. And that's really the concern I have, is accidentally creating a policy document that is divorced from what we would expect to happen and then kind of producing some unintended consequences. So not to say that those would happen, but just to get a better understanding from both of you, Mayor Buck and Councilor Sherman, of kind of what you see. Is this, am I looking at nothing, or is this something?
Mayor Buck.
Yes, Councilor Martin, I think we're just looking for to affirm, these are not new commitments we're asking of ODOT, right? These are commitments that ODOT has already made. And we're looking to just memorialize those in the RTP document as our community's document on this plan, and to continue moving forward in good partnership, all the jurisdictions, Metro, ODOT, Metro staff, and for those who are around these tables. I mean, this policy topic, these policy topic documents that are here before us now with the two columns, key concerns on one side and the MPAC recommended actions, those, did go through ODOT, and they look a lot different than Metro staff's recommended actions, which a lot of us felt like were very responsive to the community concerns we heard, and now we feel like it's moved back a bit. And so these amendments proposed by, Councilor Sherman are working to get us back closer to what Metro staff had recommended and closer to what we've been hearing from our communities throughout this process.
Councilor. Great. The great Roger.
Right, so we have a motion and a second, and we've had some discussion.
The mic.
Anyone else? I didn't see any other hands up.
Mike.
Over here.
The mic.
The mic.
Oh, sorry, Mike, gotcha. So we could either have additional discussion on this. We've had a couple of concerns raised. We could go ahead and move to a vote at this point.
On the
Okay.
amendment, right.
On the amendment, right, we're voting on the amendment, on Councilor Sherman's amendment.
We will put forth the vote on Councilor Sherman's amendment as he put forth. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Who's that?
Yeah.
That was,
One nay by
that was
Tom
Director
Kim.
Thomas Kim.
Tom Kim Trimet. Yep.
Thomas Kim, Trimet. And it passes.
Motion passes. So we have now amended the original motion. So we're going to go back, have a final vote on the motion as amended, and then we are almost done.
Great. We'll have
Yeah.
a vote on the final amendment as Roger.
Yes, we can just go and move right into a vote at this point on the original motion as amended.
Okay. We are moving into the original vote as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, looks like it passes. Thank you. Moving on to discussion.
Is it now that we go back to the tabled amendment? Yes.
Three, I think we're on three now.
Right, so maybe we move through the other policy items and then come to Commissioner Schulz as the last one of those. Okay.
Yes. Moving on to discussion topic 3, regional transportation funding. Discussion topic 3 is considering approval on the MPAC recommendation for the regional transportation funding topic. Do I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of MPAC's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Sherman, seconded by Councilor Hassan. Is there a discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Looks like it passes. Thank you. Moving on to discussion topic 4, climate tools and analysis. Discussion topic 4 is considering approval on the MPAC recommendation for the climate tools and analysis topic. Do I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of MPAC's recommendation for climate tools and analysis?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Sherman. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we'll go to Commissioner Treese or Vice Chair Treese. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So that passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on to discussion topic 5, mobility policy implementation. Discussion topic 5 is considering approval on the MPAC recommendation for the mobility policy implementation. Do I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of MPAC's recommendation for mobility policy implementation?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Hassan, and a second from Mayor Buck. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, looks like that passes unanimously. And we,
Now I think we would want to move to the, back to Commissioner Schulz' suggested amendment.
yes.
And maybe the best thing to do would be to maybe quickly restate it as a motion,
Okay.
or describe it, or whatever.
Let me just summarize it. Clackamas County has some concerns about the details about safety included in the description of the I-205 tolling project, specifically Project 12099. We feel that the wording paints a picture about safety that is in conflict with the I-205 environmental assessment, and also it's in conflict with the concerns we have about the decrease in safety that we will see on our through diversion on our side streets if tolling goes into effect. So we like to see that information eliminated from the project description. Thank you.
So I think we have a motion as described by Commissioner Scholl, and then so we would move and see if there's a second, and then go to deliberation.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Commissioner Scholl, second by Mayor Buck. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Martin, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Scholl, I just have a question there in terms of wordsmithing for specific projects. That seems really deep in the weeds, and I'm curious what the intent of this amendment is to accomplish. What's the goal of changing the word language there?
We feel that the inclusion of this amount of detail about safety does not accurately describe what we expect to happen if tolling occurs. In other words, we feel this is a unsubstantiated comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Mayor Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think, you know, we're seeing, if you look in the constraint list, you see a level of detail there that is not seen in any other project on the constraint list. And so we had questions about one, and just as, again, this is a recommendation to go back to TPAC, why is there this level of detail on these, and it's the one project, but also all the other I-205 related projects. Why is there this level of detail, facts that there are questions around on this, in this spreadsheet? And so that's, you know, what's bringing about the questions, you know, just further asking TPAC to take a further look.
Okay.
You know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Buck. Vice Chair Teresa.
So my question is, can you answer the question of why, please?
Yes, and so the answer is ODOT provided that information. We requested them to demonstrate more how that project was going to improve safety in the corridor, and so that was their response in terms of the project description. There are other details in that project description that were amended into that project when it was brought into the 2018 RTP that were part of all of the discussion that was happening around that to ensure that safety and diversion were being addressed, that House Bill 3055 in terms of facilities that would be evaluated through the tolling analysis. So there is an extraordinary level of detail, not just on the safety data that's in there, but also around what the project in the PE phase would be evaluating. That was part of the extensive negotiation and discussion to bring that PE phase into the 2018 Regional Transportation Plan.
May I ask a further question here? I think I understand that part of the reason for the amendment is because not only is there more detail around this than there is around other projects, but that the detail, that there's debate about the detail itself and whether or not it's actually true. So my question is, how do we challenge that in the system? Not whether or not we should do the amendment, but is that in fact challenged when that information comes from ODOT? Or is it just accepted?
It was accepted.
Okay.
It was based on their data, the analysis that they had done.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Rosner, and then we'll come back to you, Mayor Buck. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm just trying to understand here because, you know, from a general, just conceptual point of view, you know, the statistics show that, you know, safety on our highways is a lot better than safety on our local streets. So the diversion issue is an important issue to me when it comes to overall safety on our roads. Is the request for this amendment to make sure that that's a wider conversation when we're talking about safety for a tolling project and the diversion impacts and that can have on safety? Is that what we're trying to address here?
That would be correct.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So we have an amendment on we have an amendment and we have a second. Any other discussions? All right. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Can we do a roll call?
Would you like me to do a roll call?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. Commissioner Sharon Myron, excuse me, Commissioner Sharon Myron. It looks like Commissioner Myron may have dropped off. Commissioner Carmen Rubio.
Aye.
Omar Khattab.
Abstain.
Commissioner Mark Shull.
Aye.
Mayor Joe Buck,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilor Brett Sherman,
Aye.
Ed Gronke. Ed, you're still muted. You'd also do a thumbs up or down. Thumbs up. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pam Treese,
Aye.
Councilor Anthony Martin,
Nay.
Councilor Nadia Hassan,
Nay.
Mayor Tim Rosner,
Aye.
Vice President Gordon Hubbies,
Aye.
Luis Nava. Oh, Luis Nava dropped off, but is now being re-promoted back. Luis, do you vote, how do you vote on the proposed amendment?
Aye.
Thank you. And finally, Thomas Kim.
Nay.
Looks like it passes. Amendment passes.
Yes, it does.
And
Another
okay,
thing.
at this point, we are going to move forward to vote on the final action, ordinance 23-1496 and exhibits A, B, and C. Our final action is an overall recommendation to the Metro Council to adopt the 2023 RTP, including consent items we previously approved, discussion items we previously approved as well, and ordinance 23-1496 and its exhibits. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Chair Treese, or Vice Chair Treese.
Second.
And second, Mayor Buck. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Looks like it passes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We made it. And we have Vice Chair Treese.
I just want to make one comment that I extend a great deal of thanks, as it was previously stated, to the staff for the work that has gone into it, and for all of our staffs that have also
Yes.
participated at many levels. I really appreciate the positive nature that this group brought forward in dealing with the amendments, dealing with the discussion. So my thanks.
Yeah, huge shout outs. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, Kim, Tom, and Jay for guiding us, and Roger as well, and all of Metro staff and everyone, just doodling everything you just said. So thanks again. Are we moving on to item 6.2, or are we going to, okay, we're going to move on to item 6.2, MPAC recommendation on the high capacity transit strategy. Our next item is consideration of resolution 23-5348 and the purpose of adopting the 2023 high capacity transit strategy, which was a key policy focus area of the 2023 regional transportation plan. The strategy provides the framework for high-capacity transit investment and renews our regional commitment to high-capacity transit as an essential tool for achieving regional goals. Before taking action today, we'll hear staff's recommendation for final refinements to create the adopted strategy based on our comments received during public review. These come before us as consent items considered as part of the action on Resolution 23-5348. On October 18th, MPAC voted to recommend that we approve the resolution before us. Staff proposes that MPAC recommend to Metro Council approval of Resolution 23-5348 as recommended by MPAC. We have Ali Holmquist to give us a rundown. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair, and I apologize that I wasn't able to be there in person today. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I am really excited to talk about the action item before you today for the high capacity transit strategy, which is the culmination of almost 2 years of our work together. Next slide, please. So going back to the beginning, we really started this work to think about how we could create a stronger backbone for the transportation network through high capacity investment, really rooted in the 2040 growth concept framework. And together we envisioned an expanded role for high capacity transit in the region with rapid bus, a backbone not only connecting regional centers to the central city, but regional centers to each other and major town centers as well. Next slide, please. We then crafted a policy framework establishing the characteristics of an optimal network, the features that make transit high capacity, and the elements that make it successful. Next slide, please. And we also updated the transit spectrum, including all the tools in our toolbox for creating a high quality system to better reflect the modes that include high capacity elements and differentiate the tools and the role of better and frequent bus. Next slide, please. And a broad background of regional work provided the foundation for evaluating corridors with the outcome of a broader system best supporting regional goals. And combined with readiness, this led to the updated vision, which was really the crux of the work, providing the framework to guide future investments in high capacity transit and creating a pipeline prioritizing those investments to support our competitiveness for federal funding towards realizing our vision. Next slide, please. And we also created a roadmap for putting the corridor tier pipeline to use in implementing the vision, identifying the pieces of the puzzle that work together to develop a transit supportive corridor environment and set up for successful high capacity investment. Next slide. And similarly, we work to outline specific actions to define a pathway that all partners can take to work together to champion transit supportive elements and move corridors forward based on readiness. And together, those formed the project development pathway, setting up to advance corridors ready for investment now and identify tailored strategies for growing corridors for future investment. Next slide, please. And all of that work was encapsulated in the initial draft strategy report that we discussed back in May, which was updated based on committee and community feedback collected that month to create what was the public review draft document that was released over the summer. And you heard a lot more about that document and process from Kim at that time. And then today, MPAC is being asked to take action on a recommendation regarding Resolution 23-5348 for the purpose of adopting the 2023 High Capacity Transit Strategy. And as noted, staff advises that MPAC recommend approval by Metro Council of the resolution as recommended by MTAC at their October 18th meeting earlier this month. Next slide, please. And your packet today includes the following items recommended for approval by MTAC. Attachment 1 includes the resolution language. Attachment 2 and Exhibit A includes that a public review draft high capacity transit strategy document released this summer. Exhibit B, which is attachment 3, includes a summary of the public review comments received and the staff responses and or recommended changes based on public review to be incorporated into the final adopted document. And I'll describe those in a little bit more detail in a moment. And then attachment 4 finally is the staff report to the resolution that will go before council for consideration next month. Next slide, please. During the public review period, we received 56 comments, which expressed clear support for the high capacity transit vision and pipeline in connecting those regional and town centers, and a lot of interest in identifying resources to implement that vision. We heard a lot of support for the Tier 1 and 2 priority corridors, but we also heard clarifying questions about connections to other regional work, and some considerations were posed about service challenges, opportunities, and trade-offs. In response to that feedback, MTAC recommended the following changes by consent to create the final strategy. Some technical edits to standardize terms and for greater consistency and clarity. Some language reflecting the different tools in the transit toolbox that we talked a lot about in May that's broader than just high capacity transit. Additional language about how we can look towards improving accessibility of trains and buses as TriMet looks to begin an update to the coordinated plan for people with disabilities next year. Next slide, please. There's also more detail added about the rapid bus implementation plan and how that will build from this work to focus on implementation. This is already in the regional transportation plan in Chapter 8, but is also reflected in the high capacity transit strategy. And then also some additional documents around survey summaries in Appendix A to reflect additional feedback and information. And then some changes to Appendix F, which is the corridor level matrix, to add some information primarily about where transit priority lanes exist and where they're planned in the future based on feedback from our working group. Next slide, please. You heard this from Kim a moment ago because the high capacity transit strategy follows the same adoption timeline. But as the next steps, TPAC and JPAC will consider recommendations next month. And then after that, Metro Council will consider both MPAC and JPAC's recommendations and a public hearing testimony before taking action on November 30th. Next slide, please. But as you know, the work won't stop there. We will just shift to a focus on implementation, and that's really described in Chapter 8 of the Regional Transportation Plan, talking about the additional work we'll be doing on the Tier 1 priority corridors, which is underway already. The work around the Rapid Bus System Implementation Plan, additional study around first and last mile connections to the high capacity system, and then also where transit service is lacking today. And then also additional information about regional transit-oriented development, and better bus programs that continue our transit work. Next slide, please. And so with that, Chair, I will turn it back to you to facilitate action on this item today.
Great, thank you, Ali. Our final action of the evening is to recommend to the Metro Council approval of the high capacity strategy, including resolution 23-5348 and exhibits, which includes the public review draft highway capacity strategy and exhibit A, and the recommended changes to the public review draft HCT strategy and exhibit B. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Hassan.
Second.
And second by Councilor Sherman. Any discussion? We'll go with Commissioner Scholl. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Clackamas County has some concerns about this high-capacity transit strategy. All the high-capacity transit corridors south of the Clackamas Town Center or the Park Avenue Light Rail Station are either Tier 3 or Tier 4. It highlights how people living in the southeast portion of the region may not have access to high-capacity transit for decades to come. We're concerned about the prioritization of funding. We know funding is tight, but we think that this high-capacity transit strategy does not right-size investment. For example, we can't put riders on a bus if we don't have a route and a bus to put them on. So Clackamas County is concerned that we see in this strategy funding being poured into your Tier 1 and Tier 2, but without enough funding going out to the outer areas of the region that we feel are being neglected. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Councilor Sherman.
Commissioner Scholl, I appreciate those comments, and I do support the high-capacity transit strategy. And what I would suggest, I won't make a motion on these, but what I would suggest is that in the future, after adoption of this, I would ask that Metro consider, incorporating clear and objective metrics to identify how a corridor has achieved sufficient readiness to move between tiers and to move them up. Because the process, it's a long period of time, in the current RTP cycle. So having some type of process internal that allows that to occur would be very helpful. And a process to develop like an application process so that jurisdictions can bring those up, and maybe just a more regular review process internal to the RTP process to identify situations where corridors may have crossed and now could be potentially a higher tier. So again, not making a motion on that, just something I would like to see in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hassan.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment. I checked in with Beaverton staff. They were really thankful and supportive of all the work that Metro has done on this, so I'm super excited to vote yes on this.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Scholl, do you have another comment or?
No, I'm done, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions or discussions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. So we have one opposed. And it passes, thank you. All right. And we're going to save item 7.1 for our next meeting, which is on November 8th. And as always, we are out of here on time. So thank you all for your service and the robust conversations. And looks like we have one more comment from Councilor Rosenthal.
Yep, I would just like to make the comment. First of all, I want to thank staff for all their technical work responding to the thousands of comments. It's been a laborious process, and also for their detail. It's a complicated process, and for them bringing people along. I also want to thank MPAC for their considered deliberations tonight. I think I tend to agree with those, and I hope that the TPAC will pass them on to JPAC so that we can consider them. And I do want to make a couple real quick comments. One is, I think the process of amending because things have changed in the last few years, I think the process of amending the RTP is something that we're going to have to do before 28, primarily because we have had different growth concepts than we had before, and we may have even more considering the CHIPS Act. So I think that we have to deal with that. I think that also we have to consider that we need a regional tolling plan, not just a project-oriented tolling plan, which is sort of what ODOT has been presenting us. So I think we need to consider those things. But I look forward to seeing what we get, and I look forward to moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Rosenthal. And one more comment from Kim. Thank you.
Councilor Rosenthal, I thank you for those comments, and I also just want to reiterate that MPAC's recommendation will be considered by the Metro Council, regardless of whether TPAC carries it forward into their recommendation to JPAC. So I just want to be really clear about that.
So
you will receive a recommendation from MPAC as well as a recommendation from JPAC. If it's the same, it'll be the same. If it's different, we will present how it's different.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you all. This does adjourn or complete our meeting for the evening. Meeting is adjourned.